after losing the election, liberals are about to face a second loss, and although they could stop it, chances are unlikely that they will. By now, everyone is speculating and they have their own ideas of why Trump won, why Harris lost. I've noticed that a lot of the ones coming from the left are really based on cope, whereas the people to actually ask are the people who actually voted for Trump. But how did we get here in the first place? Why did the left lose so badly in such a landslide from the start? Well, I think if anything, it's clear that the left is remarkably out of touch with the majority of America. I think this comes as a result of two things. First, trying to push an agenda and trying to tell people what you want them to believe. And then secondly, by living in an echo chamber where you don't actually hear what other people are saying and where other people want you to believe. A lot of people in the US have gotten so sensitive, and this is particularly true with people on the left, that they preach inclusivity of race, but not of ideas. And which is more important between the two? I would argue that it is ideas. I would argue that it is the human being that's beneath the skin. I mean, I think that's pretty self-evident. But people get super hung up on either sex or skin color, as opposed to like thinking about the human being that is inside of that is actually making those thoughts. And as they've moved forward to push this idea that they want people to believe, they have really demonized anyone who doesn't believe that, which in this case is 3/4 of the US, because we start with all Republicans, but they've demonized a lot of men in general. So that's half of their own party. If you look at it that way, it's actually remarkable that they did as well as they did, and no surprise why they weren't able to be successful for their campaign. Another thing that's interesting to me is as you see people, the liberals, reacting to the decision, a lot of women are really frightened for their life. They believe that they're not going to be safe tomorrow, that either their lives somehow is going to irrevocably change or end, that their daughters aren't safe. And here we are, it's the next day. They'll probably be okay tomorrow, the week after that, the month after that, when I think it's important to take a look and see how things go after Trump gets into office and see just how in danger they are. I think this happens when you have a party that is using rhetoric to try and scare people into voting the way they want to vote, to gain control. So then when it doesn't go their way, all these people are left believing that they are in actual danger when they're not. It also shows how malleable people's minds are, because they believe this stuff without using their own critical thinking. I mean, we had people believing that the world was flat, for crying out loud. We have people believing that men and women are the same, that there's no difference. It's impressive what you can make someone believe. So the fact that people are this malleable to believe this is impressive. Another thing I notice, that the left or the liberals is very big on empathy and caring for people, or they claim to be, but right now there's a lot of people that are spewing a tremendous amount of hate toward conservatives, that, unaliving, wishing really bad for them, thinking that that's what's on the other side, but it's not. It's not. There's always a few, every family has a few bad apples, but on the large part, it's not. And maybe it's true on the left too. Maybe it's not the majority. Maybe it's just a few that got a lot of attention. But regardless, it's very interesting to note those people who claim to be part of a party that champions exclusivity. Unfortunately, it's only the type of exclusivity that fits them, that includes the way they've defined it. and they haven't defined it through ideas. And I haven't even talked about the two wars that are going on between Russia and Ukraine and between Palestine and Israel. That's a huge topic for a lot of people. A lot of people are concerned and want those wars to end. So there's a lot of major topics out there that would cause someone to vote for someone like Donald Trump, regardless of what you think about his personality. So why do I say that they're about to suffer a second loss? I say that because any time that we have a result we're not expecting, we're wrong about something, it's a chance for us to grow and learn and improve. In fact, being wrong is the only time that you actually get that kind of benefit. Because if you're right, it means you've learned nothing. Being wrong is the only time or opportune time that you can actually grow and learn and change and ideally become a better person. That's where a lot of people on the left or liberals, I feel, are missing out on an opportunity. Either they're not learning anything, or the lesson they picked to learn is that the other side, the right or the conservatives, are stupid, they're idiots, karma's gonna come and get them. Literally, it's a type of cope that, saying that when you feel out of control, you say these things to try and feel better. They're gonna get theirs in some way because you can't deal with it. Unfortunately, by going there and not looking to see how they didn't listen, they didn't try and understand the other side, they didn't take the other side into consideration, alienated, like I said before, 3/4 of, or talk shit about 3/4 of the United States. All of these things, like, there is a cause and effect relationship. And how often have we heard, to take an example, women complaining that, like, why do we need men? What use of men? Men are no good. Well, in this case, a lot of them are probably disappointed that a lot of men voted conservative and will probably continue moving conservative without seeing how they took place in causing that. So, and that's really part of a larger problem. And it's kind of sad for me to see a chance where someone has the opportunity to learn, to grow, maybe even use some compassion to think, wow, what kind of a state must someone be in to feel that voting for Trump is a better option than voting for Harris? What kind of state must they be in? What may they have gone through in the last 4 years? Of course, when you're part of the party that loses, that can be harder to do. But if you can do it, that's when you'll actually get some benefit of trying to understand the other side. Because if you want to change someone, you're never going to be able to do that without understanding them, without understanding how they view the world and how they got there. So only if you can see how they got there that you can understand the pieces that brought them to that conclusion, and maybe even offer them an alternative and say, I understand you think it's this way, and I totally get it. I might have thought that way too, but there's this other piece of information that I have that helped me actually see it differently. I saw it like this. And by sharing that, you now have a chance at influencing someone. But it's never going to happen if the other person doesn't feel understood. And if you don't think they understand it, you're not going to listen to them. So understanding someone is incredibly important to being able to influence them. And truly understanding them means you have to see things from their point of view, which means you have to be open to the idea of being wrong. You have to be open when you enter into a conversation. A big mistake I see a lot of people make. They want to enter into a conversation, but their goal is to make the other person see things from their point of view. I'm going to make them see what I see. Good luck with that. If you can't, you have to go into, if you want to be effective and if you want to be honest in what you're doing, you have to go into that being open to the fact that maybe you're the one who's wrong. Or maybe you're not wrong, but maybe there's something you're not seeing, because if you saw it, you might think like they do. It's only, and if you want to ask them to change, which you probably will, you can't ask them to change if you're not willing to change yourself. Why would they do that? I mean, that would be hypocritical to try and ask someone to do something that you're not willing to do. Not okay. You have to, if you want them to do it, you have to be willing to do it too. And it's only then that you can actually get into a conversation that is hopeful. That is if you are searching for authenticity and truth. I would say most people are not. Most people are trying to get their way. They're trying to force their way through because they've decided that it's right. And maybe it is. Although you can probably, by evaluating everything from different angles, you could probably find an area where maybe it's not the best thing. And it would be important to at least see that and be aware of that, so you know what negative reactions could come from whatever you're fighting from. So those are two of the things that I think the two ways that I think the left is losing. They already lost the election, and now they're losing the chance to learn from it because they're not willing to take an honest look at themselves and listen to the other side, see how they're wrong, and try and actually understand. You know, the country's getting more and more divided. A lot of help from social media on that. And yeah, it's it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So hopefully anyone that this reaches can actually take a step back and take an opportunity to figure out what they can learn. One of the most important things is figuring out what the lesson is to learn in the first place, right? If the lesson you learned is the other side are stupid idiots, you picked the wrong lesson. That's not it. It's not going to help anybody. Definitely not you, definitely not them. You're going to go nowhere, and all that time and opportunity will be wasted. So try and figure out what the lesson is for you, and then it's going to be hard, but you're going to have to pick your heart. It's going to be hard to learn a new lesson. It's also going to be hard to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So pick your heart. Anyway, hope that resonated with some people. I'm not conservative. I'm not Democrat. I'm largely independent. I try and I do my best to try and have a balanced view and look at both sides of the argument. What's crazy is I know a lot of people will criticize me and others for doing that if you're not staunchly on their side, and that's a problem. It's one of the reasons that they're so blind, is because people won't talk to them because they're so reactive and so accusatory in their communication. So if that's you, don't waste your breath, or feel free. You know, everyone will know that you didn't actually watch to the end of this video. You just had a reaction, posted something, and you know, you're gonna stay there until you start listening and learn the lesson that you haven't learned yet. I really hope you do. I hope everybody does, because the more evolved everybody is, the better it is for all of us. We all help each other in that way. Anyway, for those that this was helpful for, I hope it resonated, so that we could all try and take something from this and move in a positive direction. Love you guys.